Okay, let me start with this idea. If every single dollar you possess is like a soldier, would you actually dare send it into battle unarmed?
That really makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's more than just a clever line.
Exactly. For Kevin O'Leary, who, many of us know as Mr. Wonderful from Shark Tank, that's not just some metaphor he throws around.
Right.
It's like a fundamental rule of war. It shaped his entire financial life.
Absolutely. We're talking about the guy who started with, what was it, a $10,000 loan?
Yeah, from his mother. And through, well, sheer force of will and this incredibly uncompromising financial view, he turned that into a massive $3.2 billion deal with Mattel.
It's staggering. And his whole rise, that empire he built, it wasn't based on luck or, warm, fuzzy feelings.
Not at all. It was built on something really clear, but honestly, often quite uncomfortable for people to hear.
Yeah.
Cold, ruthless financial logic.
And it's fascinating how literally he takes that dollars as soldiers idea. It's not just about managing money passively. It's about commanding it, like with military precision. Every single dollar is a strategic asset.
Yeah, it's not that sort of feel-good advice you get in self-help books.
Not at all. It's a rigid strategic framework. It's all about deploying capital and demanding results. And that mindset, you see it in every single decision he makes.
And yeah, for most people watching Shark Tank, O'Leary is definitely polarizing. You either think his honesty is, refreshing.
Or you just cringe.
Right. But behind that sharp tongue, behind what looks like just ruthless deal-making, there's someone who didn't just fall into billions.
No, definitely not luck.
He really transformed that one $10,000 loan into this massive empire. And he did it through rules. Very specific, incredibly rigid rules.
Cold, calculated, uncompromising. That sums it up.
It really does.
So this deep dive today, it's really an invitation, isn't it? To get inside the mind of someone who doesn't just, understand money conceptually.
He commands it.
Yes, commands it, shapes it to his will. Our mission here is to really dig into and analyze the 6 core principles Kevin O'Leary operates by.
And these aren't just tips, right? Not things you can just casually try out.
No, these are like deeply embedded beliefs, the core of that cold logic that made him not just incredibly wealthy, but, and this is so important, truly free.
Okay, so as we get into this, I want you, listening right now, to keep one central question simmering in the back of your mind. It might challenge some of your own ideas about money and success. What actually happens when you treat every single dollar like a soldier and you feel absolutely nothing when one of them effectively dies in battle?
That's a tough question.
It is. This whole discussion is about pulling out the most vital bits of his philosophy, giving you a shortcut, really, to understanding this pretty radical approach to building wealth and achieving real freedom. Let's get into it. Financial mindset. Money has no emotions, only instructions. Okay, let's start right at the absolute core of O'Leary's financial world. His central mantra. For him, money isn't just, spent. It's deployed. Actively. Like a general sending troops out. He says it all the time. It's almost like his creed. Every dollar I have is a soldier. I send them out to work, and they must bring more dollars back.
Some come back wounded, some die.
Exactly. I don't cry about it, because if you want freedom, you must send them to battle. It's such a vivid picture.
It is, but it's more than just a powerful image. For O'Leary, this is literal. It's a tactical strategy guiding every financial move, big or small. And if you think about it, compared to how most people see money, it's completely different.
Totally. Most people see money as safety. Right.
Yeah.
A cushion. Something to, hoard and protect from risk.
Yeah, there's often this emotional attachment, isn't there? Tied to security or dreams or even just anxiety.
Definitely.
But O'Leary, he sees money as pure leverage, a tool to be mobilized, a resource to put to work, always with that single goal, generate more capital.
So he doesn't fear risk in the same way.
He engineers it. Yeah. But it's calculated. He's looking for predictable, repeatable returns. And you see this right from the very beginning with that first $10,000 loan from his mom back in '86 for SoftKey. He didn't treat it like, a precious family gift.
No sentimental value.
None. It was a boardroom asset. Cold, hard capital to be put to work immediately to compound. Not held for comfort, it was deployed instantly.
That flows directly into his whole thing about emotional detachment, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
He's famous for saying, never fall in love with a stock, never fall in love with an idea, numbers don't lie, but your emotions will.
Oof. That one hits hard for a lot of people, especially entrepreneurs.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
For so many of us, our businesses, our ideas, they feel like our kids,
Yeah, you pour everything into them, your identity gets wrapped up in it. It's deeply emotional.
But O'Leary looks at a failing business like Like a sinking ship.
And his advice is brutally simple.
Hmm.
Get off. Save the cash you can.
Right.
Move on.
Zero room for sentimentality in the calculation.
And what's really striking is how you see this play out on Shark Tank,
Right.
You see the other sharks, they often connect with the founder's story. They get emotional.
Sometimes they even tear up a bit.
Right. But O'Leary, he stays completely focused on the numbers. If the business model is weak, if the economics don't work, boom, he'll drop a deal mid-sentence.
Even if the founder's crying right there.
Doesn't matter. He simply does not invest in losses. In his world, emotion isn't just a fuzzy distraction.
It's a cost center.
Exactly. It leads to bad decisions, holding on to things way too long. It destroys capital. He sees it as financial self-sabotage.
So let's be clear, this isn't him just being cruel for the sake of it.
No, not at all. It's about discipline. A really rigorous, almost brutal discipline.
A discipline to say no even when something feels good, right? Like if you like the founder or the story is compelling.
But the numbers stink. He has the discipline to say no to those feel-good but perform poorly situations.
It's about keeping that mental clarity. Every dollar is an agent with a mission. A soldier. No room for emotional static.
It's overriding that basic human instinct when money's involved.
Yeah.
And this cold, clear approach, it has very practical results in how he invests. It's exactly why he's so big on dividend-paying stocks.
Right, he's not chasing the next big thing, the hype.
No dreams of some far-off future payoff that might never happen. He buys cash flow now.
Consistent, reliable cash flow.
To him, a good investment isn't some vague promise. It's a machine that pays you back month after month without apology and without drama.
A machine generating more soldiers.
Precisely. Without needing his constant attention or emotional energy worrying about daily swings, it's predictable, tangible. His money is always working, producing income.
So if we boil this down, what's the core power dynamic he's getting at that most people miss?
Well, I think it's this. If you let your money make decisions for you, if fear of loss or chasing fantasies or just emotion drives your choices.
You're trapped, enslaved by those feelings, always reacting.
Exactly. But if you learn to command your money coldly, clearly, ruthlessly, like that general...
And it becomes your obedient army.
The most obedient army you'll ever have. Doing its job, bringing back more resources, building your wealth methodically.
And it makes perfect sense that this mindset directly led to his, well, pretty unconventional and rule-breaking career path. 2, career strategy, building wealth by breaking all the rules. Let's really dig into that career strategy now, because Kevin O'Leary just never took the standard route to success.
Not even close.
In fact, you could say that's exactly why he got where he is. I mean, look at his education in environmental studies and psychology. Then an MBA.
Right. Most people with that combo would be aiming for a comfy corporate job, climbing that ladder.
Totally. But not O'Leary. He starts a software company, SoftKey, from his basement, with a few friends and that crucial $10,000 loan from his mom.
It's just so unconventional. This wasn't Silicon Valley with tons of VC money, right?
No fancy engineers from Stanford or MIT.
It was a basement operation, selling educational CD-ROMs, digital flashcards, math games, that kind of thing.
In the late 80s, when most people barely had computers at home.
Exactly. It wasn't ubiquitous like today. So from the outside, it probably looked kind of, well, soft, maybe low-tech, even quaint.
But internally, O'Leary called it a war machine.
He ran it like one. Lean, efficient, totally focused on conquest.
And that war machine had a strategy that was just unapologetically aggressive. He wasn't trying to build the best software, the most innovative thing.
No awards for design excellence were on his radar.
His single goal was to build the most dominant company in that specific niche.
And he did it not with tech breakthroughs, but by just systematically buying up competitors.
Right, and squeezing margins, relentlessly finding every way to cut costs, optimize, maximize profit on every sale.
And scaling distribution massively, pushing products into Walmart, Staples, getting that prime shelf space everywhere.
So within, what, a decade? SoftKey had basically swallowed up nearly every player in educational software.
It wasn't elegant innovation. It was aggressive consolidation, brutal efficiency, market saturation.
And it worked. Big time.
Which leads to that move that really stunned the tech world back then. 1995, SoftKey, still relatively young,
buys the Learning Company,
which was way bigger, older, more established, a giant in that space.
And then he takes their name, just absorbs the identity.
Audacious, right. A startup effectively consuming a legacy player like that. Almost unheard of then. It defied all the usual rules.
But prestige industry norms.
Hmm.
That stuff meant nothing to him.
It was all about leverage, market control, growing revenue and profit.
And that whole arc peaks in 1999. He sells the learning company to Mattel for $3.2 billion in stock.
Which, we should note, became a super controversial deal later on.
Yeah, the company ended up costing Mattel a fortune, like a $100 million loss.
But by then, O'Leary, ever the pragmatist, had already cashed out his stock, got his gains before the whole thing went south.
Some people called it ruthless. Others said, oh, he just got lucky in the dot-com boom.
But as we're seeing, it was really just a clear, cold, calculated strategy, executed ruthlessly.
It all comes back to his core belief, doesn't it? He says it flat out. Business is war. I don't care if you're selling dolls or diapers, you either dominate or you disappear.
It sounds harsh, yeah, even militaristic. But that is his career philosophy. The goal isn't the best idea.
It's controlling the market, dominating your niche, extracting maximum profit.
And that just completely challenges the romantic idea of entrepreneurship, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. The whole follow your passion, change the world narrative.
For O'Leary, it's not about passion, it's performance. It's following demand, understanding margins, executing precisely. He explicitly said he didn't follow his heart with soft
How
feet.
he followed his margins.
Exactly. The financial indicators showing where the power and profit really were. And he argues that's why he won.
Right.
He saw the battlefield, found the weak spots, and just struck relentlessly.
So the key takeaway from this part of his story, what is it really?
I think it's a big reminder. Don't buy into the lie that success has to feel good or look noble. In O'Leary's world, results, cold, hard, numbers speak way louder than intentions or reputation.
The real players, he'd say, don't chase ideas. They buy power.
They consolidate market control. And this incredibly ruthless career strategy, well, it's totally enabled by a really consistent, unyielding set of personal habits. 3, success habits. Discipline over emotion, structure over spontaneity.
Okay, this is where we get into the daily grind, the actual habits of Mr. Wonderful. He wakes up every morning with a mission, right? And it doesn't start with casually checking his phone or sipping coffee.
No, it's immediate clarity, fierce intention. Every single day, he writes down the 3 most critical tasks he needs to get done.
And he sticks them on his mirror, literally.
Yep, and the rule is non-negotiable. No calls, no email, no distractions at all until those 3 things are finished.
He says, if I can get those 3 things done, it's already a win. The rest of the day is gravy.
And that's so much more than just a productivity hack, isn't it? It's his whole philosophy.
Right.
He doesn't really buy into balance the way most people talk about it, that kind of work-life juggling act.
He believes in execution.
Singular, focused execution. While others stress about harmony or plan vacations, he's doubling down on focus and priority. He genuinely believes success isn't built in these amazing bursts of genius.
It's built in boring, relentless consistency.
Exactly. And this obsession with order, with precision, it goes way beyond business. It permeates his personal life, even his closest relationships.
Which brings us to that really controversial one, the thing that makes people gasp.
The separate finances rule.
Yeah. He says, I forbid my partner from ever merging finances with me. Separate accounts. Always.
Sounds incredibly cold, right? Maybe even distrustful or unloving to some.
For sure. But for Kevin, it's about absolute clarity. Legal protection. Minimizing conflict points.
He really believes love and money are totally separate things. Mixing them, that just leads to blurred lines, hidden resentments bubbling up.
And ultimately disastrous decisions, financially and personally.
So he manages his personal finances like a corporate budget. No surprises, no impulsive spending, no emotional loopholes.
Even in marriage, there's a firewall between affection and assets. He thinks it actually helps communication and trust in the long run.
And the why behind it is crucial. He's seen so many entrepreneurs fail, not because the business itself died.
But because of emotional chaos at home.
Exactly. Failed personal partnerships, reckless spending driven by impulse, unspoken money arguments eroding everything.
So chaos is like cancer to him.
Financial chaos, personal chaos, any chaos. And discipline, that's his immunity. It's the shield against those emotional pitfalls, keeping his focus sharp on building wealth and freedom.
And this disciplined approach, this almost surgical mindset, it just cascades into everything else he does.
All his habits. Tracking expenses to the penny.
Automating his investing so emotion can't interfere.
Avoiding debt like the plague, sees it as financial slavery.
Reads financial reports for fun.
Yeah. But maybe the most critical habit, the one that really separates him, his ability to say no constantly.
He put it so bluntly, Most people fail not because they're stupid, but because they're too soft to say no.
And that just makes you wonder, doesn't it? How many opportunities do we waste? How many distractions pull us off course? How much time do we lose just because we can't say no?
Yeah.
That single habit, drawing firm lines, refusing anything not aligned with his core mission, that separates the disciplined from the, well, perpetually distracted.
Especially today with everyone praising hustle culture,
Yeah.
overcommitment,
Multitasking madness. O'Leary practices subtraction,
fewer decisions, tighter focus.
cleaner boundaries around his time, energy, money, ruthlessly cutting out anything that doesn't serve the main goal.
So if we zoom out on these habits, what's the core message?
I think it's, well, if your calendar is chaos, if your finances are messy, if you're pulled in a million directions, your result will be random, unpredictable. Yeah. Ultimately, probably unsatisfying.
We're just reacting all the time.
Exactly, at the mercy of impulses and external stuff. But if you truly own your time, hour by hour, dollar by being intentional, prioritizing ruthlessly, saying no,
You don't just build success, you become unstoppable.
pretty much. And these disciplined habits, they aren't just for show. They serve a much bigger, overarching life philosophy. 4. Life philosophy. Freedom is the real currency.
Okay, let's connect all these dots. The cold calculations, the strict habits. Where does it all lead? What's the bigger picture for Kevin O'Leary?
Well, it's clear he doesn't just worship money itself. He respects it hugely as a tool.
A very powerful tool.
Immensely powerful. But what he really values, what he's been chasing since day one, it's something deeper, more precious than just stacking up cash.
It's control over his time.
Exactly. He says it constantly. The measure of success isn't money. It's how much of your day you own.
And that's not just a nice saying for him.
No, it's his absolute North Star, the guiding principle. From that very first $10,000 loan, he wasn't just dreaming of, yachts and mansions.
He was dreaming of sovereignty.
Yes. The power to say no to anything he didn't want to do. To walk away from obligations that didn't fit. To wake up every day and choose how to spend his hours.
He's very clear. He doesn't want to be rich just to sit around and do nothing.
He wants to be rich so he can work only on what he chooses, with whom he chooses, whenever he chooses. Wow. And that choice, that freedom, that autonomy.
It's sacred to him, the ultimate luxury.
And he has this great term for it, the entrepreneurial dividend.
Right. It's such a powerful idea. When your money works harder than you do, that's freedom. Until then, you're just another employee.
And boom, that links straight back to his investment strategy.
Yeah.
Why he focuses almost exclusively on things generating passive cash flow.
Dividend stocks, royalty structures, recurring revenue.
Exactly. He's not just building that worth on paper, he's actively building time wealth, which is way more tangible, more reliable freedom. His income doesn't need him physically there, constantly working.
Which also explains his attitude on Shark Tank, right? When someone comes in talking about changing the world but has no actual money plan.
He cuts them off sharply, delivers those lines that make people wince, like, you want to save the whales, that's great. But this is business. Do the whales pay dividends?
Sounds brutal.
It does, but Kevin isn't actually anti-purpose. He's anti-delusion.
Okay.
Idealism without a functioning, self-sustaining cash flow model. To him, that's just a hobby pretending to be a business.
He believes real impact, real change, pursuing meaningful work. It all requires leverage.
And leverage starts with capital that works for you, independently. Without financial independence, good intentions often just stay intentions.
And that brings us to the big paradox of Kevin O'Leary.
Yeah.
The guy who sounds like this pure capitalist machine looks at everything through a financial lens.
It's also the guy who fiercely protects his time, his peace, his priorities, above almost anything else.
He doesn't chase headlines. He doesn't feel pressure to launch new companies all the time. He doesn't pretend to care about stuff he doesn't care about.
Why? Because he doesn't have to. He bought himself that freedom.
The freedom to choose.
And that's the kind of freedom, really, that no salary, no bonus, no fancy title can ever truly buy. It's directing your own life.
So the hidden lesson here is huge.
It really is. If your money isn't actively buying back your time, if it's not freeing you up, it's just digits, a score, not real liberation.
But if you use money strategically, ruthlessly, to reclaim your time, your calendar, your decisions, your peace of mind,
then you're not just rich, you're genuinely free, living life on your own terms.
And this relentless drive for freedom, it's backed up by his communication style, unfiltered, uncomfortable, but always direct. V-power thinking, brutal honesty over polite failure. So we've hit the mindset, the habits. Let's talk about how he communicates, because Kevin O'Leary doesn't just skip the
He
sugarcoating.
takes a scalpel to it.
Totally. We've all seen it on Shark Tank. He looks a founder right in the eye, delivers a killer line like, "You have no business, you have a hobby." And hobbies are what you do on weekends, not what you ask me to invest in.
And the reaction is always the same.
Yeah.
Audience cringes, other sharks maybe wince.
The entrepreneur just freezes, stunned. But Kevin.
Stone cold, doesn't blink.
But what's fascinating is why he does it. His reason behind that brutal honesty.
Yeah, for him, telling the raw truth, even if it hurts like hell,
Yeah.
that's not cruelty.
He sees it as the highest form of respect, especially in business.
He said it directly. If I lie to you to spare your feelings, I'm stealing your future.
Wow. And also, I'd rather hurt you now than let the market destroy you later.
And this isn't just some teasy act. It's his fundamental belief. He genuinely thinks most people fail not because the idea was bad or they didn't try hard enough.
But because nobody around them, mentor, friend, family, had the guts to tell them it was flawed or unsustainable.
Exactly. No one delivered the hard truth.
So in his world, politeness in business, it's not just unhelpful, it's poisonous.
Actively poisonous. It wastes time, money, potential. The person could have changed course.
Clarity, even if it's brutal, is kindness. It's the only way to help someone pivot and maybe actually succeed. Directness is efficiency for him.
And importantly, this ruthless honesty. He doesn't just dick it out. He applies it just as fiercely, maybe even more so, to himself.
He's known for being brutally self-critical.
Yeah, he reviews his own investment portfolio like a general analyzing a battle.
Yeah.
Constantly cutting weak performers, questioning his own past choices with zero ego.
And pulling the trigger on tough calls, even if it means admitting he was wrong about an investment.
He said it perfectly. When the facts change, I change. If you don't, you'll go broke.
He doesn't cling to hope or ego.
Only data, facts, performance, numbers.
And this data-driven approach shapes everything: how he negotiates, who he hires.
Even how he interacts generally. He values plain speakers, quick decision makers, people who own their mistakes.
He surrounds himself with executors, not yes men, people who get things done and aren't afraid to challenge him with logic and data.
Right, and it's this clarity, this commitment to truth, no matter how uncomfortable, that gives him influence beyond just his wealth.
When O'Leary speaks, people listen, not because he's always right,
but because they know he'll never lie to them. In a world full of filters and facades, he speaks without one.
So what's the big insight here for you, listening?
I think it's this. If you're always chasing approval, trying too hard to be liked, afraid to say the hard things, you're giving up real power and clarity.
True power comes from telling the truth.
To others, yes, but especially to yourself. Even when it's about your own mistakes or weaknesses. Because the market, life, doesn't care how you feel or how polite you are.
It cares what works, what performs, what gets results.
Exactly. And this kind of sharp clarity, it's never more essential than when things go wrong, in times of crisis. 6. Crisis strategy. Turn panic into profit, fear into firepower.
Okay, let's tackle crisis. Because this is where O'Leary's cold logic really stands out, almost chillingly effective.
Yeah, most investors, when the market tanks, when recession fears are everywhere, uncertainty rules. What do?
They hide, pull back, retreat.
Kevin O'Leary does the exact opposite. He goes hunting.
He's not fazed by red numbers or panic. In fact, he almost seems to relish it, he says. When there's blood in the streets, that's when I shop.
It sounds cold, but that mindset has made him a fortune. Because he gets that fundamental truth most people avoid. Crisis isn't time to hide.
It's time to reallocate, go on the offensive, buy undervalued assets.
And what's really impressive isn't just that he acts, it's how proactive he is. Look at the COVID-19 pandemic disruption.
Total panic everywhere, markets crashing, businesses folding.
Did O'Leary freeze? No. He systematically poured money into sectors others were too scared to touch or overlooked.
Online education, cloud services, food delivery, logistics.
Right. And these weren't just random bets on temporary trends. They were calculated investments in fundamental infrastructure.
Yeah.
Companies with solid cash flow. Necessities people would still need, maybe even more, despite the chaos.
He summed it up perfectly, didn't he? In a bull market, everyone looks smart. But when the tide goes out, you see who's really naked.
He waits for that tide to go out to see who's actually solid.
So he's not just waiting for things to get better. He's actively preparing for chaos, positioning himself to benefit from it.
How? He keeps deep cash reserves, always has dry powder ready.
Diversifies like crazy across different, often countercyclical sectors, insulates himself.
And crucially, avoids debt like it's radioactive.
Hmm.
He sees it as a massive vulnerability when things get tough.
So while others are scrambling, loaded with debt, trying to survive.
He's positioned to strike, ready to buy from those forced to sell cheap out of fear or desperation.
So what separates those who freeze in a crisis from those like O'Leary who act decisively?
It's speed, yes, but it's strategic speed. Not emotional panic. He doesn't just react faster. He thinks ahead, often months ahead.
He knows exactly what he's looking for in a downturn.
Businesses with proven essential demand. Founders who adapt quickly don't just whine. And critically, positive cash flow now, not just promises for later.
He's watching everything, consumer behavior shifts, tech adoption, supply chains.
Weeks, months before the average investor even reacts to the headlines.
He really believes a crisis doesn't create weakness. It exposes it.
And if you're prepared, it exposes opportunity too.
Look back at 2020. Airlines, energy, traditional retail, bleeding cash, O'Leary's portfolio, heavy on utilities, telecom, digital tools, dividend payers.
Many didn't just survive, they thrived, became essential. For him, every crisis is just a discounted on-ramp to the next phase of wealth.
But that ramp is only open to those who did the work beforehand.
The discipline, the diversification, relying on data, not emotion.
So the powerful lesson here for you, listening.
If you wait until the crisis hits to figure out your strategy, you're already behind. Too late. You'll just get swept away by fear.
But if you train yourself now, practice that discipline, stay cold and clear when the world heats up with panic.
You won't just survive the next storm. You'll be positioned to absolutely own the calm and the opportunities that always follow. Outro.
Okay, let's bring this all home, back to that central, fascinating paradox of Kevin O'Leary. Cold money, warm freedom.
It really is a paradox, isn't it?
His rules, as we've gone through them, they sound harsh, emotionless, maybe even robotic.
But here's the twist. The colder, the more detached he is with his money.
The more genuine, real freedom he actually creates for himself to live exactly how he wants, no strings attached.
And that's the deep lesson, isn't it? It goes beyond just getting rich. Money doesn't care about your intentions or your feelings.
It rewards discipline. Cold, clear, unwavering discipline.
O'Leary doesn't treat money like a trophy to be polished. He treats it like a soldier, a worker, a tool, a means to an end.
And by commanding it with that precision, he's earned the one thing most people never truly get, even with millions: time freedom.
No bosses, no unwanted meetings, no compromising on how he spends his most valuable asset, his time.
And it's so important to remember, this wasn't luck. It wasn't just being in the right place during a boom.
No, it was hard choices, made early. Choices most people actively avoid.
Like saying no to projects that wouldn't scale profitably, cutting businesses loose that didn't perform.
And maybe the hardest one, totally separating emotion from execution in finance and business.
There's a real irony there. The world tells you, follow your passion.
But Kevin followed his numbers, his margins, cold data. And paradoxically, that's what gave him the ultimate freedom to actually pursue whatever he loves on his own terms, answering to no one.
He nails it when he says, money is just a tool. If you don't control it, it will control you.
So the truth that sticks with you long after you stop thinking about the dollar amounts is this: cold rules can create remarkably warm lives.
Because when you truly master your money without emotion, without apology, with total clarity, you don't just get richer, you get free.
So for your listening, maybe some final questions to chew on, reflecting on Mr. Wonderful's world. Are you treating your money like a disciplined soldier, focused on its mission?
Or is it more like a crutch, something for comfort, maybe enabling impulsive choices?
Are your financial moves driven by discipline and data? Or are they swayed by emotion, fear, maybe wishful thinking?
And crucially, as you build wealth, or plan to, is it actually buying you freedom, real control over your time?
Or is it just adding more complexity, more obligations, more hidden burdens?
What one cold, clear rule inspired by O'Leary's approach could you maybe adopt right now, starting today?
To begin commanding your money, and through that, commanding your time with that kind of ruthless precision we've talked about.
Something to think about. Until next time, stay focused, stay sharp, and remember, your money is either working for you or it's working against you. The command is yours.